Am I the a-hole for assuming my girlfriend cheated after I picked up my girlfriend from work by surprise? My girlfriend, who's 25 female, and I, a 29 male, have known each other for 2 years now and some change, but started dating 1 year in. She does not have a car, lives with her family, and her family regularly has issues with their transportation. So she has had to walk to work a lot. I live in a decent distance away and also work 8 to 5, and she works the night shift that starts at 10, which is typically when I hit the sack. I have offered to drive her to work before or give her rides home when I can and have done so before, but she turns me down, saying she will figure it out and it's not so bad. Well, I had some paid time off come up that I let her know about, and I was trying to schedule some time to spend with her during my paid time off. She recently let me know she wants to spend more time with me, and she's right. I haven't been able to spend as much time as I would like with her due to our differing schedules, and my job, while not too difficult, keeps me engaged pretty much all day. It's a startup, go figure. So sometimes I work past 5, and since it's been non-stop at work sometimes, I don't respond as quickly as I would like. Although I know she is asleep most of the time I am at work, but she is awake for a while after her shift. This is just one aspect of me not spending enough time with her. There is more, but that's the gist of it. Now that context is out of the way, I'll get to the meat of the issue. The night of my pay time off starting, I woke up unusually early. When I look at the time, it's about time she would get off work. So I decided to take a quick shower and hop in the car and go to pick her up. I don't let her know I am on the way, mostly because I showered a bit too long and was now rushing to make it on time. Usually, when I pick her up, and because it's 6 a.m., the parking lot is usually empty, but tonight there is a car I haven't seen in the parking lot before. As I park and get out, I noticed someone in the car diddling away at their phone and whatnot, probably killing time. So I think not much of it until I get a bit closer, and I swear I have seen the guy in the car before. I can't really remember, and he's looking down, so I just walk inside to let her know I'm here to take her home so she doesn't have to walk or get someone to come get her. As I walk in, she just stares at me, then smiles and comes and gives a quick hug and kiss, but it's much shorter than usually, but I assume it's just because she is tired. Then she asks me if there are any cars outside, to which I say, yes, why? And she kind of blows it off and goes back to work. But I'm wondering, why does she even care if there is a car out there? My girlfriend yells from behind the counter that I can go if I like because she might have to stay a little later. I say it's okay, I'm on pay time off. I don't have anywhere to be, so I'll wait for her. At this point, she's already walked in the back out of sight. So I look back to the car, and it's still out there, and the guy is still there, and that's when it dawned on me that that's why I recognize the guy. I have seen him before. That's one of her friends I have seen in passing before, but I don't really know the guy. Well, he suddenly gets up and leaves. Now, I kind of feel terrible because I don't know if that guy went out of his way to be here. So when I see her next, I tell her the car she asked about left. I was expecting her to say something about it, but she just shrugs? Strange, but okay, I definitely know that guy was one of her friends, so why didn't she say something? Well, I'm tired anyways, so I let it go and just wait for her to clock out. When we get to the car, I go to kiss her, but she's very short with me. I assume she had a bad shift, so I don't press her. As we pull out, she tells me I won't be able to pull into the driveway of her house because there is a tree in the middle of the driveway right now. Well, I know there is. The last time I was over, it was there in the driveway, but it wasn't taking up as much space as she is claiming it was to me just now. This is when my gut was telling me something is up right now. I push back a bit and say, it's no problem, I'll drive you up as far as you can go. She says, okay, but as soon as we are in front of the driveway, she seems panicky and says she'll just walk from here and thanks me for picking her up. Well, now my alarm bells are ringing. But honestly, I'm shocked she's acting this way, so I'm just stunned. She gives me a quick kiss and hug and gets out. I am still shell-shocked at what's happening. It's 7 a.m. or something now and I'm still a bit groggy, but I start freaking out, running through all the reasons why she doesn't want me to pull up that driveway. But I continue driving on autopilot for a couple of streets until I take a second and pull into a random driveway and sit and think for a second about what just happened in those last few brief moments. I decided I'm gonna go back and talk with her real quick and see if she is okay. Well, I pull up to the driveway and the car from before is there. It is one of her friends, so I try to keep my gut feeling at bay. Her stepdad is taking the dog out as I pull up, and I decide to strike up a conversation with him real quick. To keep this short, it goes something along the lines of, "Hey, did girlfriend have a ride for work planned out today?" And he just shrugs. So I ask if he knows who the guy with the car is. At this point, he starts stonewalling me, which is making me annoyed, but I keep my cool and say okay and park. I try to call my girlfriend, but there's no answer. So I try again. No answer. Well, now I am in full panic mode. I think the worst is happening. Stepdad goes into the house at this point, so I get out and knock on the door and ask if the girlfriend can come talk. Her mum comes back and says these exact words to me. "Girlfriend is busy right now, and I'm not going to interrupt her. When she's available, she'll give you a call." I almost lost it then and there and said, "What is that supposed to mean?" And she just stares back at me. Well, I realize I'm not getting in and just start spam calling my girlfriend at this point while standing in the driveway. Still no answer. At this point, I assumed the worst. Stepdad comes out and asks me to leave as they don't want to get involved with whatever is happening. So I take a deep breath and leave. Well, my girlfriend reaches back about 20 minutes later, asking me what's wrong, and I ask her why she just lied to me about everything that happened this morning. Then she tells me the guy's dad just died, and she didn't know he was outside her job, and he's a close friend, and that's why he's over. And she was in the shower, and that's why she didn't answer the phone. So I lost my calm, to say the least, and pointed out all the weird stuff that happened. But now she's telling me nothing happened, and she didn't do anything wrong. After I calmed down, and she was still messaging me about this, claiming I was also being suspicious with girl clothes lying around and glitter she found. So I proposed, why not just go through each other's phones, or let me talk to the friends to get their story straight. She said no to the friend and no to the phone, even though I also offered her my phone because of a past relationship. She doesn't want to get to that point. Now we are at a standstill because she's upset that I don't trust her and I'm not backing down. So am I the a-hole for assuming something happened? So here's the thing, as the comments would say, you're not the a-hole, but you need to walk away from this. Even mom and stepdad are in on this, and neither has enough respect for you to tell you. Which, okay, fair. But let's see it from their perspective for a bit. If my partner showed up at 7 or 8 a.m. and started acting weird and aggressive, I think that's just a knee-jerk reaction. My parents might be less than cooperative about whatever it is they wanted. But even then, let's be real. If girlfriend's story was totally true, why not just say, "Oh, so kind of you to pick me up. My friend's dad just passed, so he's here and I'm going to spend time with him." Bam, problem solved. So that post was yesterday, with the update just coming a few hours ago. We got back together. I am okay being the side piece. Psych! I decided to just ghost her and move on with my life. I'll let her simmer in all her insecurities by herself, as she is still messaging me that she needs time to think about the relationship, as I haven't replied to anything since the original post creation, and I plan on staying that way. I'll try to keep this short, as this is already a pretty long read. So I remembered where I originally met that guy friend in passing. He handed us food from his job when we ordered something there. Now, I don't know this guy's schedule, and I'm not a stalker, so I just drop it. However, the guy's job is a popular fast food chain in the middle of a regular town that happens to be the closest available one near my house. Well, my friend I'm hanging out with, who lives not too far from me to help me stay out of my head and not overthink this, decides that they are hungry, and to show my appreciation, I offer to buy them dinner and what they would like. Now, I haven't told my friend every nitty-gritty detail of what has been happening, but they are aware of what is happening. They say the guy friend's work. This next part is questionable, even for me, but I guess all it took was a plausible opportunity, so I say nothing and tell him I'll pick it up for him and come back. In my head, I am thinking I don't even know this guy's schedule. What am I even thinking? He's probably not even there. Well, he was there. As I pull in, I see the car, and my adrenaline shoots through the roof. I honestly was not expecting him to be here. So I park and slowly walk up to him, and I politely ask him if he knows my girlfriend. He says yes. Then I ask him if I can talk to him for a minute, as he's putting on the rest of his uniform. And he says, sure. He's early for his shift, so he's got time. Well, not going to lie, I was not prepared for this. I start off by asking him if he was picking up my girlfriend from work, work on Wednesday night, and he says yes. I ask him through gritted teeth if my girlfriend texted him to meet her at the house instead, and he says yes. Well, that's one lie I already caught her in, so I'm basically all done here. All I needed was to catch one lie, and I got it pretty quick. At this point, I don't care too much about the answer to the next couple of questions, but for closure, I guess I kept asking away. I ask him what they were doing at her house, and he says they were just smoking and watching anime, but said nothing about the dead parent. But honestly, I didn't care at this point if that was a lie or not, but seeing as how he didn't bring it up either, I just assumed it's a lie. I repeat the anime and smoking answer and then ask, so you guys didn't hook up? And he says near instantly, no. Yeah, alright, buddy. After that, I ask him if he knows I have been dating this girlfriend for 1 year now, and he says he had no clue. With that, I am pretty much resolved to get rid of this woman and move on, and I'm not sure I can hold my temper much longer, so I just say, alright, well thanks, sorry for bothering you, and head inside and grab friend's food. I could have grilled the guy harder, but my blood was pumping and I was trying my best not to be rude and lose my temper. I honestly did not expect him to be there at that exact moment, but when the opportunity presented itself, I said screw it. Well, afterwards, he tells her I talked him up at his job and she loses her mind. But I don't care. I just keep pointing out to her all her lies, and if she doesn't start telling the truth, then she can get lost. Well, she gets pretty mild-tempered after that, and then starts to actually empathize with me about the situation for a moment, but I already know she's trying to most likely manipulate me. She's messaged me a few times since then. I only looked the first time and it says something along the lines of me not being able to trust her has hurt her and she needs time to think. I just left that on red as well and never looked back now. Now, as for some people playing devil's advocate down in the comments about why she would suspect me with girl clothes and glitter, I will give a little more context, even though I think my position has all but already been set, that I am an open book from cover to cover. I answered this in a comment below, so I'll just copy and paste it here. They aren't girl clothes. This specific flannel she asked me about is a flannel my mom bought me that's too small for me now that I have laying around in my car. I used to be pretty skinny, but I started to get into the habit of going to the gym near the start of the relationship, and unfortunately I dropped the habit after a couple of months. Well, now some clothes don't really fit me anymore. It's also in colors I don't really wear, but hey, I didn't pick the thing out, someone did for me. For work, I sometimes have to drive to another location with some equipment. I'm in IT. And while some of these sites are a little friendlier than others, so I use the jackets and flannels I take off and throw in the back seat to lay it over some of the equipment so people don't look in my window and see hundreds of dollars of equipment one window away from them. As for the glitter, yeah, I don't know what she's even talking about with this one. I just assumed it was some deflecting stuff, so I didn't even entertain it anyways. If I had some girly girl with glitter all over her coming over, then going through my phone like I suggested would clear this up pretty quickly, I feel. Am I the a-hole for wanting a divorce when my wife said she was tempted to cheat on me? For background, I'm a 33-year-old male, and my wife Kate, who's 32, have been married for 8 years. We have one child, a 3-year-old male, who was unplanned but not unwelcome. When my wife found out that she was pregnant, it obviously came as a surprise to us. She had been taking birth control ever since we started dating, since we agreed that we were not financially ready to have a kid. However, after being married for 5 years and advancing our careers, we felt like we could make it work. Thus, we decided to keep the child and began planning for the next phase of our lives. Prior to Kate getting pregnant, she worked as a waitress at a local restaurant, making just above minimum wage once tips were factored in. On the other hand, I am a construction worker who made 2 to 3 times more than her at the time. We lived in a decent apartment, but we agreed that we would need a real house to have the space for our child. So we began looking for our first home. During that process, and as Kate's pregnancy went further along, she quit her job to focus on preparing for the baby. We found a house that we liked, but it was more expensive than I was hoping for. I make good money working construction, but having to fund 2 people, a new mortgage, and buy all the supplies a baby needs is not easy. I began putting in more hours at work to be able to afford everything, resulting in me being able to spend spend less time at home with my wife. The baby finally comes, and he's a healthy little boy. I couldn't be more proud, but once he was born, Kate began to change. She was more tired and stressed, having to care for a newborn, which I don't blame her at all for. I know kids are a lot of work. I essentially had to raise my little brother, who was 10 years younger than me growing up. However, Kate would also complain that I wasn't around very often, and that when I was home, I wouldn't help with the baby as much as she thought I should. I explained to her that to be able to afford the house, the baby, and the two of us by myself, I had to put a lot of extra hours in. And when I came home every day, I am exhausted. I lift heavy things for a living. I'm lucky to be able to make it through the day without my back being terribly sore. Still, I tried to help out more. I changed diapers where I could, fed the baby where I could. The one thing I refused to do was get up in the middle of the night, which is something I know upsets her. My reasoning is that I'm barely getting 5 hours of sleep a night, and if I get any less, I'm going to be an utter wreck on the job. If that happens and I get less hours or even get fired, we're financially screwed. As time went on, we kept making it work, and eventually things get less crazy and stressful. The older the kid gets, the less constant attention and work he needs from us. That's not saying caring for a toddler is easy, but it's easier than caring for an infant who can't sleep through the night. 2 months ago, Kate suggested that she get a regular job again, and that we use the extra income to pay for a nanny, and in general, help with the expenses. I agreed because I was exhausted and the idea of being able to put in less overtime sounded great. Fast forward to last night, and Kate has been working as a cashier for 6 weeks now. We've hired a nanny, and the money situation isn't nearly as tight. I was able to work less, though with Kate working now, I'm not able to see her in the mornings, which is usually when I would see her due to how my shifts work. I thought things were going great, until Kate sit me down last night to have a conversation. She admitted to me that there's a guy at her work who's been flirting with her, despite knowing she's married. He's funny, easygoing, handsome, etc. She said that he asked if she was available to go on a date behind my back, and though she said no, she was sorely tempted to say yes. This blindsided me then, but now that I've had a day to think about it, I think I can see how this happened. She was always upset that I wasn't home very often, wasn't there to help and support her with the kid and so on. Our current arrangement allowed me to have more energy when I came home, but since she leaves for work in the morning before I wake up, the actual duration of time I see her each day has shrunk even further. I think that the reason she was tempted by this guy at work is that he's given her the attention she wants from me. I can understand that, but it also made me mad. Frankly, I've been busting my butt for the 3 years to afford our child the house she wanted and her ability to be a stay-at-home mom. I've been working 10 or 12-hour days, 6 days a week to afford this, and she's tempted by some guy at work after knowing him for 6 weeks. I felt betrayed, more than I ever have before. I asked to see her phone, and she gave it to me without resistance. I went through all her contacts, deleted messages, everything. I didn't find anything suspicious. I don't believe that she actually cheated and is only pretending to be tempted to, but I suppose it's possible. She seemed genuinely remorseful during our conversation, but that didn't make it feel any better. I told her in the heat of the moment that I want a divorce, and this caused her to break down in tears and beg me to stay. She asked if I would tear our family apart over just the idea of her cheating, and I threw her words back in her face and said I was sorely tempted. I then went to bed and ignored her attempts to get me to talk, since I had work today, the work that has kept our family afloat for the last 3 years, and more if you want to count the 5 years I spent making 3 times more than her. I thought about this all day today, and I'm not sure what to do. I can't get over the idea that my wife wanting to cheat with the first man she spent any extended time with in 3 years. She asked me if I was going to throw it all away over a feeling, but she was going to do the same damn thing with the guy from work. She's angry that I got angry at her in the moment, but I think I have good reason to be furious. So those particularly anal about it, there are some questioning how the hell she makes enough to pay for a nanny and ease the burden of finances as a cashier, and in one of his edits he explains this, that they live in the Northeast USA, where minimum wages are good, and that this nanny isn't really an official babysitter, more just a college student who wanted to make some money while taking online classes without dealing with the hassle of getting a real job. So it's basically just mates rates sort of situation. But onto the prevalent issue, it seems that OP, despite having reasonable frustration and pain, is still coming at this from a very valid, balanced mindset. As comments like these highlight to them, sure, the wife expressing all this is a slap in the face, but it's also a wake-up call, and I think it's confident to say that the OP is aware of this too. With this great encouragement, you fell in love, got married, and because of that, had a child. That relationship is worth working on too. And you might have to work as hard, if not harder, to make that work as well. Which, look, okay, it's all well and good that he needs to work on this relationship. As others point out that, well, she needs your emotional and mental help, not just financial, and that's valid. But one thing I always kind of find a bit annoying about these sort of circumstances is that it implies the partner who's being tempted to cheat is merely a victim. I mean, relationships are two-way streets. Would you not argue that she also needs to be doing something more to reach out to him? She feels like she's left with all the emotional responsibility. Well, he feels like he's left with all the financial responsibility. So yeah, it's a tricky situation, but the OP actually comes back in an edit about all this. To summarize it all, because oh my gosh, he types a lot, but he's gonna have a thorough conversation with her first, bringing up the whole idea of how much he's worked hard for this relationship, only to find out that all it takes to get her excited is some flirting for 6 weeks on and off. Like, that's how easy it is to completely ruin the relationship. It's not exactly very comforting and secure, you know? But also making a questionable ultimatum here, that she has to quit her job immediately, even if she wasn't tempted at all. I don't want her around the type of scumbag man to take advantage of married women. If she doesn't agree to this, then I will have to assume that there's more between the guy at work than she's letting on, while also continuing on to acknowledge that, yeah, she's probably feeling lonely and neglected, and he's willing to find out whatever he can do to fix that for her. And it's just under a day later, actually, that we get an update to all this. How do things turn out? Well, just quickly clarifying the same thing as before, that the reason that they can afford a nanny is because it's not actually technically a nanny, and they have a good space to get minimum wage, etc. All the things we've already clarified. Now for the update. I called in sick to work today, which is something I rarely ever do, and asked my wife to do the same so we could sit down and talk about everything. She agreed, and this morning we had a long, heartfelt discussion. I told her that I was sorry for what I said in the heat of the moment. I don't want to divorce her. I was angry and hurt and wasn't thinking about the damage threatening divorce would do. I told her that I understand things have been difficult for us the last 3 years, but I was shocked that she would be sorely tempted to cheat on me just after 6 weeks with some random guy at her job. I told her that having been the sole, or at least the main provider for our family pretty much the entire time we've known each other, I feel like I wasn't being appreciated enough for the work and effort I've been putting in. She said she felt the same way, that she felt like she was struggling thanklessly since I was never around to be with her. I told her that that was only the case because I had to make enough money to pay for the kid and the house she wanted. And before anyone tries to twist my words, I love my son dearly. I am not simply putting up with him because she wanted to keep him. If I took less overtime to see her and help with the kid more often, we'd have trouble keeping the lights on. We both agreed that we needed more time with each other at home, but talking out how to make that happen took a while. Eventually, I told her that I stand by what I said to her when we first bought the house we are currently in. It is too much house for us. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house with more area than we need, and the mortgage and property taxes are too high. I brought this up when we first looked at the house, but my wife insisted that this would be the perfect house for our family to grow up in, and that once it was paid off, we would be set. But seeing how much we've struggled to afford this house while slowly falling apart physically and mentally, I think she understands now that it's too much. After some prodding, I convinced her that we need to start looking for a house to downsize into. Selling our current house will give us enough cash to pay off the mortgage, though not by much. Once we're in a smaller home with smaller expenses, I won't have to work as much, meaning we can spend more time together as a couple and a family. She told me that she just wanted me back, and I honestly almost cried hearing how much she meant it. I was so focused on work and paying the bills that I lost sight of what we needed as a couple, and our marriage very nearly imploded because of it. The final issue to address was her job, and more specifically, the scumbag who was hitting on her while knowing she was married. Given our current financial situation, it would be stupid to make her quit her job and go back to staying at home. Plus, it would probably only make her feel trapped again since she only recently got back out into the world after being a stay-at-home mother. However, I can't stand the thought of that guy even looking at my wife, especially since I know she harbored some sort of interest at some point, even if it came from loneliness and desperation. I told her that at the very least, she needs to report the guy to management or HR and ask for a different hours so that they are never in the building at the same time. If that happens, then there's no reason for her to just quit. But if that doesn't happen, then I'll be helping her look for a new job immediately. Things are still looking difficult right now, but as I type this a couple hours after the conversation, I think we've pulled back from the point of no return. We're both just taking the day to calm down and think rationally about what needs to happen to get our financial and personal relationship back on track, but I'm hopeful. And then ending it with a basic thank you to everyone for their thoughts and helps, acknowledging the suggestion for couples therapy, but of course that's just another big expense that they can't really take on right now. Either way, hooray to the power of just sitting down like a bunch of grown-ups and having a conversation to work things out. Now here's an interesting two-parter, not so much with an update, but with two genuine points of view that, trust me, you don't want to be too quick taking sides. I, 26 male, proposed to my 24-year-old girlfriend of 6 years last month. She obviously said yes, and we've been working on wedding details, example, saving the dates and invitations, venue, caterer, all of that stuff since. We go to talking about who we would want in our wedding because she wanted to do a special proposal to her side of the wedding court, and she said she wanted to have her best friend since childhood be her maid of honor. The thing is, her childhood best friend is a guy who's 24 male. They live on the same street when they were kids and have been friends since. My fiance and I met in college, and her friend was there too, so I've known him for as long as I've known her. At first I didn't really like him because he was always hanging around her, but after she and I started dating, I was forced to be around him more, and I kinda started to tolerate him. He and my fiance saw each other a lot, but he and I have never really hung out one-on-one before. One time when we were alone together, he tried to get all tough and did the "if you ever break her heart, I swear" corny threat talk. He's a small dude, so it made me laugh more than intimidate me. After that, I got the feeling this was a situation where he liked her, but she didn't know. I asked my fiance if she and him ever had feelings for each other, and she said no, then let me know that he was gay. Now, I'm not homophobic or anything, so it's not like I don't want him in the wedding because of that. It's just that I think it would be better if her side of the party was all girls. She and him already did everything together. Not including him in our wedding wouldn't hurt the friendship. I told her that and she got defensive, saying that if I could have a girl in my side of the party, the girl being my older sister who practically raised me, she could have a guy. I said that it was a different circumstance and that I wouldn't allow her best friends to be her man of honor. She got really mad and said it was her wedding too, then stormed out. I got a text from her sister a few hours later saying that she had gone to her parents' house and told them what I had said. So they thought I was being an a-hole because I never liked her friend and I am threatened by him. I have tried to talk to my fiance since she left, but she hasn't returned my calls or texts. Look, I really love her and I don't want to lose her. I just don't want her best friend to be part of our day. Am I in the wrong? So many quick assumptions to make here. Sure, buddy. Sure, you're not at all upset or uncomfortable with a gay man. But even then, even if he genuinely is totally fine with it, it's still such a weird stance to take. You're not even intimidated by him. Clearly, after being with you for 6 years, she wants to be with you. I mean, do you genuinely think he is the kind of character who would try and usurp a wedding event? And besides, all that's going to do is make him look like a loony bin. It just seems such an unnecessary, pedantic thing to be so quarrelsome over. Naturally, this got a lot of comments to really accuse the OP of being an absolute a-hole. People saying things like, it's her wedding as well, so he is family to her. Don't worry, you won't have a fiancé anymore at this rate. With OP's stellar response, well, he's not legitimate family, so it really doesn't count. He can be included in her family section of the guests, that doesn't matter, but breaking it down and splitting the hairs, he's not biologically family. Others also pointing out the irony that he's all about tradition when OP is not even picking only men himself for his side of the party. But it's okay because he's breaking tradition for someone who is family. So it seems like an open and shut case. This guy is clearly an a-hole and this woman needs to get rid of him. But that's until we come to this noticeable edit from the OP. See, folks, it turns out this may not be a case of him just being closet homophobic, but fighting back against the lack of respect she's given him. It's come to my attention in a previous comment I made. I have created the world's thinnest argument. I said that my fiancé was unwillingly able to compromise on things such as the groomsmen's neck pieces and blazers, and as such, I was in the right to be unwilling to compromise about her best friend. I stated in a few other posts that there were other things she didn't want to compromise on, and someone suggested I make a list, so here it is. To summarize these, 1. She wants to do spring in an open field for the wedding, but OP has terrible allergies and spring is at its worst. He gave alternatives such as closer to summer or in summer, but it's spring or nothing! So yeah, screw the love of your life having a terrible experience. You're getting married in spring. OP suggested a DJ who played a mix of all their favorite songs and some fun upbeat music. No, she wants a live band. specifically in her favorite genre. He suggested maybe just giving the DJ a longer list of her own songs so she gets more of her songs she likes than his. But nope, I want band. I want my style band. Okay, so two things he's compromised for her. Now, what's also important to note is that they're two different cultures. He's Cambodian and she's full-blood USA. How do you think things go when it comes to incorporating their cultures in the wedding? Well, here, he wanted to incorporate things such as a parade that leads the groom and his family to the bride's house where they present her and her family gifts, a hair-cutting ceremony, but I made sure to tell her her actual hair would not be cut, and finally, a knot-tying ceremony where the guests wish us a long, happy marriage. Well, she wanted absolutely nothing to do with these ceremonies and said they would be too much time and effort since it would be like having two weddings. I tried fighting for these more than the others, but she was firm on doing things traditionally. She also already had a preference for how the groomsman should look despite it being, well, his groomsman. She even changed the color scheme behind his back. It was originally black, gold, maroon, and forest green. So now it was a pink or rose, yellow, white, and pastel blue because apparently the decorations would look better for the spring. Now, he had already printed the invitations with the original colors, but
Oh, you can just print some more. It's okay. They only cost like, what, $5?
so okay, you can see here how it seems there's more layers to all this than just someone being a homophobic or sexist piece of poop. He might be rejecting her genuine childhood friendship, but she's literally been denying him to celebrate his culture with her. Like, why even get married in the first place? It doesn't even seem like she wants the marriage to be with him. She just wants the marriage to be with herself. But then throughout the next day, it seems that OP, after reading all these comments, decides to actually discuss with his partner about this. You know, trying that whole mature adults sitting down and having an actual conversation. But it seems things didn't really end the way they should have, because we then get this post titled, "My wedding may be off." This time, it seems to be from the fiancée herself. I, 24 female, was recently engaged to my 26-year-old fiancé male after 6 years together. We got into a fight a couple of days ago because he wouldn't let me ask my guy best friend, who's 24, who I've known since we were kids, to be my man of honor. I ended up walking out and went to stay with my parents for a few days. I told them what happened and they agreed that he was way out of line. I went back earlier today after I thought he had enough time to calm down, and when I came home, he looked glad to see me. He apologized for stepping out of line and I said it was fine and that we still had time to ask my best friend to be in the wedding. He kind of looked down and then said that we should call everything off. This really surprised me and I immediately said no. He then admitted that while I was gone, he posted to this subreddit about what had happened and that even though he was deemed the controlling a-hole, he also realized that I was one because I had basically hijacked the wedding planning. I asked how he could think that, and he pointed out how I chose to have the wedding in spring even though that's a bad time for him, and that I changed up the wedding color scheme and what his groomsmen would be wearing without talking to him first. I said that those were practically minor things and we didn't have to call off the wedding for it. Then he said I was insensitive for rejecting his culture's traditional wedding ceremonies and didn't even consider doing them. He had brought to my attention some traditional ceremonies people do at weddings in his culture, and while I appreciate him bringing it up to me, I decided against doing it because it wouldn't fit the vibe of the traditional wedding I wanted. I told him I only wanted to do a traditional American wedding and that he already agreed with me that that's what we were doing. Then he said that me having my guy best friend be my best man was untraditional. I pointed out I let him have his sister be part of his wedding party because he wanted some part of his family included, and that since he was breaking the tradition, so could I. Right, sounds like you don't have a traditional wedding anymore, do you? He got really sad and looked like he was about to cry and said that me breaking the tradition was like a slap in the face after I rejected his traditions, and that I just didn't respect his culture at all. That is not the case at all. I greatly respect his culture. I told him I understood how mean it all sounded, but it's my wedding too, so I get a say in what we do. He kind of laughed and got up and said he wanted to take a break and left. I don't know what to do. I don't want to call off the wedding at all. I tried to find his Reddit post, but I think he was using a throwaway, though granted, I am too. I love him so much and I want to be with him for the rest of our lives. I don't know how we'll get through this. Oh boy, there's a lot of irony in this. Tell me what you think. If one finds something practically minor, that it's not a big issue to you, then why did you you go out of your way to change it all in the first place? Sounds like it's actually rather a big deal to you. And then the stupidity of a traditional American wedding, and then immediately talking about how she's okay with breaking traditions. Now, here's some other things to consider, though. So, of course, as comments absolutely grill into this person for everything she's just admitting to doing. Opie brings up her experience with her partner's traditions. She actually hasn't celebrated a lot of his cultural events besides New Year's because he's Cambodian and they celebrate their New Year's in April. But here's the other thing. He and his family had a falling out after he started dating me. His family didn't approve of a foreigner, and only recently have they reconnected. His sister, though, was different. She didn't care I was American, and she stuck by his side as his only family member. So, it's with experiences like that from his family that I can kind of understand Opie not exactly getting herself too invested into his culture. It sounds like they were rather racist. If anything, I mean, can you really blame the fiance for not caring too much about it or not having much interest in it when she clearly was never invited in the first place? But ultimately, everyone is just saying that, wow, congrats on you both managing to suck, but definitely you more so because you're incredibly controlling and don't understand or care. You are selfish and self-centered. You seem to think only your tastes and desires matter for your wedding, forgetting that your groom is a person and not just a prop at your wedding. The fact that you even say, let him include his sister, is grounds to break up with you, in my opinion. I do have to say, though, props to the guy for acknowledging and realizing his controlling behavior in this situation. Though absolutely nowhere near as intense as the woman's, he still could see he was in the wrong and where it was coming from. It's sad when relationships end, but yeah, look, sometimes for a lot of us, it's very necessary. I think this comment in particular does actually highlight why there is some good in both of them. Usually in these posts with both sides of an issue, each OP makes themselves look like good and godly while trying to make the other person look bad. Each of these two somehow manage to minimize how bad their partner is while putting their own awfulness on full display. Amazing. Others replying that, yeah, it's possible that they love each other, so they don't immediately jump to finding fault with each other. They also have actual problems on both sides, so the more digging is done, the more bad comes out all around. But yeah, ultimately, not the best look on you when your partner literally isolates themselves from his entire family for you. Granted, because that family was a bunch of racist pieces of Schmidt, but then the moment he has an opportunity to try and reconnect with his family more, to bring them back into his life, you are like,
that sounds so annoying though.
Now, again, in her defense, it could be that it's not so much she didn't want to bother to, but because she was scared of them. She was afraid of how they would treat her. She was afraid of the possible drama of them being friendly to her face, but trying to possibly corrupt her fiancé behind her back, persuade him to leave her because she's a filthy white person. I don't know. I'm really projecting some conspiracy here, so let me know what you think down below.